Straight up. Corinthians and chapter 4 and verse 17. Are you ready to get into it? Hi, Crash. Welcome. Welcome. Glad to have all of you. Okay, in verse 17, for our light affliction, which is but for a moment, worketh for us a far more exceeding and eternal weight of glory. Now, this is important to remember. Our afflictions seem really, really harsh, don't they? They seem really, really difficult and really challenging. And man, I've been struggling too this past week. I have. It started like on the weekend, into the week, and then all weekend, it's just been a constant struggle for me. But he says, our light affliction, which is but for a moment. It's not going to last, okay? This is not going to last forever. We're approaching the finish line soon, and then we'll be off to better things, and it won't be so, it won't just be so carnagey all the time. In verse 18, while we look not at the things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen. Now, here we go with the simulation again. He's talking about how we look not at the things which are seen. This is a simulation, very likely. It's entirely possible. It reconciles with many of the scriptures. But at the things which are not seen, we're supposed to look beyond what we can see here and wonder about the things that are outside of what we can see. And if it's VR, it makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Because he says, for the things which are seen are temporary, okay? This whole world around us is created from computer code. It's fascinating if you do the study. Some really brilliant scientists have discovered that at the very foundations of all of the elements like dirt, fire, wind, water, all of these, and vegetation, at the very foundations, their molecular structure is computer code. Amazing, isn't it? And our bodies are made out of the same thing this world's made out of, which would be computer code. So dust to dust. We turn back to dust because our bodies are taken from what this world's made out of, which would all fall under computer code. For the things which are seen are temporal. None of this is real. But the things which are not seen are eternal. So let's say we may have VR goggles on outside this world for all we know, and our consciousness is projected into a biological body. It's possible. It doesn't mean that's how things are, but it's possible. Okay? It's possible. Let's go into chapter 5 and verse 1. For we know that if our earthly house of this tabernacle were dissolved. if our bodies die, we have a building of God. There's a temple that God built inside us that's invisible. An house not made with hands. This is a spiritual house. It's invisible, like the invisible God is. Not made with hands, eternal in the heavens. Once we get out of this temporal world, everything is eternal out there. For in this we groan, earnestly desiring to be clothed upon with our house, which is from heaven. We want our eternal, immortal flesh bodies, so we don't age anymore, so we don't get sick anymore, so we never die. If verse 3, if so be that being clothed, we shall not be found naked. Now, you cannot be found naked if you are a child of God with the temple inside you. And I didn't know how that worked. Okay. If you have the temple of God inside you, you're not naked. And I thought I would, it seems like I always talk to God in the shower, because that's where you're all by yourself. And I think a lot of us probably do that. That's where you're all alone. Usually, unless you're a mom of little kids, then you're never alone, even in the bathroom. But my point here is that I was always talking to God in the shower, and I told him one day, I said, Lord, I am so sorry that I'm always talking to you while I'm in the shower, because I don't want to just talk to you when I'm standing under the water naked. And he shot back into my mind, you're not naked. And that surprised me, because I thought I was. And I thought, really? Cool. That's great. That's wonderful. That's great. So he was like, you're not naked. And many of you remember this. A lot of you were around back when I gave this testimony. And he said, you're not naked. And I thought, really? Because I really thought I was. But we're not. We're not naked, because we have the temple of God within us. And that is a covering of light. And that's a covering around who we really are inside. In our verse 4, for we that are in this tabernacle do groan, being burdened, not for that we would be unclothed, but clothed upon, that mortality might be swallowed up of life. So, mortality is swallowed up of life. That means we're no longer immortal. We're suddenly immortal. In verse 5, now he that hath wrought us for the selfsame thing is God, who also hath given unto us the earnest of the Spirit. So let me look at that again. Now he that hath wrought us for the selfsame thing is God. He designed us for this very thing. He says, now he that hath wrought us. Let me look that up to see exactly what he's saying here. Okay, wrought means, it means work. It's an archaic past and past participle of work. It also means of metals beaten out or shaped by hammering. So what he's saying is that he that hath wrought us, he has molded us, shaped us, for the selfsame thing is God. He's the one shaping us, who also hath given unto us the earnest of the Spirit. Now, the earnest, that's like a deposit. Okay, when you buy a house, you put down earnest money. That's a deposit. So he's given us the earnest of the Spirit. So we already have the Spirit of the Lord within us at birth. At birth. even though we don't know Jesus until we grow up a little bit and we gain some knowledge. But he's inside us whether we know it or not, from our birth. And he is within all of the children of God that way. In verse 6, therefore we are always confident, knowing that whilst we are at home in the body, we are absent from the Lord. So we know we're away from him physically right now. But when we are absent from the body, we're present with the Lord. And I was wondering when we went to the break about sleeping. I've been wondering here lately, because I pray and I usually fall asleep while I'm praying. I hate to do that, but I pray and I fall asleep. Well, then I wake up and I'm still praying. What's happening while I'm sleeping? Am I absent from my body and being renewed before the Lord each day? I don't know, because I don't remember when I wake up. What happened while I was sleeping? It's possible that we have no memory while we're in here, but it's also possible that every time we go to sleep in here, we could be awake there. It's possible, and just have no memory of it. But he's saying, he says, therefore, we are always confident, knowing that whilst we are at home in the body, we are absent from the Lord. For we walk by faith, not by sight. We don't see him right now, but we know he's there through many evidences. As his word begins to unfold and take place like a script. Have you ever noticed the root word of scripture is script? It's all pre-written. For we walk by faith, not by sight. We walk by our faith and trust in him and in his word, and not by what our eyes see. It's kind of like flying by instruments when you're flying a plane. If you have no visibility, you don't know if you're pointed up, down, sideways, upside down. You don't know because you have no visibility. So you rely on the instruments inside the plane to guide you rather than your eyes. Okay? And that's what he's saying here. Because we rely on our instruments, the word. We rely on the word. And because we've got no visibility in this world, we can't see things for exactly like they are. So we have to rely on our instruments. Same thing. In verse 9, verse 8. We are confident, I say, and willing rather to be absent from the body. See, and to be present with the Lord. Those who are walking with God, we're not afraid to go with him. We're not afraid to die. Some of us actually can hardly wait to get out of here. Either way, okay? Now, nobody is anxious to die, but we are anxious for things to change, okay? For things to change. In verse 9, wherefore we labor that whether we be whether present or absent, we may be accepted of him. What I do, he says, anything we ask of the Father in the name of the Son will be given us. So I ask the Father to please make me pleasing to him in Jesus' name. I can't do it on my own. I can't do anything right on my own unless he does it for me and through me. I'm out of luck. I can't measure up. I can't, while I'm in this body that is programmed with a sin nature, I'm always going to fail. But once he changes us, that'll be different. It'll be different. We won't be failures all the time like we are now. Wherefore we labor that whether present or absent, we may be accepted of him. In verse 10, for we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ. Now we're all going to appear before this judgment seat, that everyone may receive the things done in his body according to that he hath done, whether it be good or bad. So I think since all of our actions are pre-written, what we are judged on is our reaction from internally. Like when we're led through sin, do we regret it? Are we appalled? Are we disgusted with ourselves? Or are we embracing that sin and enjoying that sin and justifying it in our minds that it's okay when it's not okay? In verse 11, knowing therefore the terror of the Lord. It's scary to be on the wrong side of the king. You don't want to be. We persuade men, but we are made manifest unto God. And I trust also are made manifest in your consciences. You can feel that you have the Spirit within you as he guides you and he is counseling you and comforting you. He's our teacher. And you know that he's there. Oh my, what's that? Oh my. Okay. I'll have to get back with her. It says, knowing therefore the terror of the Lord, we persuade men, but we are made manifest unto God. So we are taking the gospel message all around the world to give the word in which the Spirit uses to persuade men to follow the King. Remember, my sheep hear my voice and they follow me. They don't stand around going, well, should I follow Jesus or not? They hear his voice, and if they belong to him, they come when they are drawn. But we are made manifest unto God. And I trust also are made manifest in your consciences. He doesn't want you to walk around worrying about whether you're saved all the time, or walking on eggshells thinking, oh, I'm going to do something stupid and God's going to kick me out. Well, of course you're going to do something stupid. We're all doing stupid things all the time. It's because we have this pesky sin nature. It's just wreakage. But we are made manifest in our consciences. We love God from our hearts. We love his word. We love him. We want to be pleasing to him. And so we keep his commandments. He says, if you love me, keep my commandments. If you love me, feed my sheep. So we try and we do those things, but we can't produce good fruit on our own. What we have to do, it's not effort. It's surrender. Okay? So it's not trying harder, it's surrendering to the Spirit and letting him do his thing, and you just kind of stay out of his way. In verse 12, for we commend not ourselves again unto you, but give you occasion to glory on our behalf, that ye may have somewhat to answer them which glory in appearance and not in heart. So he's saying what's in here is more important than what you see out here. For whether we be beside ourselves, it is to God, or whether we be sober, it is for your cause. So when you seem kind of crazy in your faith, you are dancing or singing before the Lord, okay? Or whether, and you just seem giddy and, almost like you've had something to drink when you're in delighting yourself in the Lord. Or whether we be sober, it is for your cause. So when we are serious and we're doing like what we're doing right now, we're going through the word and we're learning it and we're taking it verse by verse to see what we can glean from it. It is for our admonition. In verse 14, for the love of Christ constraineth us, because we thus judge that if one died for all, then we're all dead. So let's look at this. I want to see what it's saying on constrain. Let me see what it says constrain is. Constrain. Compel or force someone toward a particular course of action. The love of Christ constraineth us. So that compels us toward a particular course of action. Cause to appear unnaturally forced, typically because of embarrassment. So that's constrain, and also severely restrict the scope, extent, or activity of. So I don't know. I think it's the first one, the love of Christ. Well, it may be first and third, because it restricts the scope, extent, or activity of sin, but it also compels or forces us toward a particular course of action. For the love of Christ constraineth us, because we thus judge that if one died for all, then we're all dead. We're all dead. In verse 15, and that he died for all, that they which live should not henceforth live unto themselves. We don't, as believers and those who have the temple born inside them, we're not here to please and appease ourselves. We're not here to find whatever pleasures we can glean from the world. We are here to give up our lives so Christ can use them to do his thing. And that's what we're here for. In verse 15, and that he died for all, that they which should live should not henceforth live unto themselves. They which live. Notice, that's the believers. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. We are alive, and the children of the devil are just animated dust. Jesus is the life, and Jesus is not in them, so technically they can't be alive, which means they're computer generated. Amazing, isn't it? But that he died for all, that they which live should not henceforth live unto themselves. So if you're alive, which means Jesus lives in you, and you're born with the temple inside you, and Jesus dwells within. Okay? That we don't live for our own pleasures and our own desires in this life. Our desires should be whatever he wants. We don't live unto ourselves, but unto him which died for them and rose again. Jesus is everything. Everything. In verse 16, excuse me. Did you get that though? They which live should not henceforth live unto themselves. And it's not just anybody who's on the planet. You are not alive unless Jesus is in you. And maybe you're going, well, gee, I don't believe in Jesus. What am I? Chopped liver? Well, you're probably animated dust. Or you're alive and you just haven't been called to Jesus yet. Okay? Because those with Jesus inside them are alive. He's inside you from birth, whether you know it yet or not. Okay? Wherefore henceforth know we no man after the flesh. You don't know by looking at somebody in the flesh whether they're a believer or not. Yea, though we have known Christ after the flesh. Jesus came in a perfect, immortal flesh body to lay it down, to give us immortality. So we have known that though we have known Christ after the flesh, Yet now henceforth know we him no more. Now, let's see. Wherefore henceforth know we no man after the flesh. Yea, though we have known Christ after the flesh, yet now henceforth know we him no more. So that means he's not here in the flesh. We're going to come back right after this, and we'll start again at 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 17 after this.